Balik Pulau is situated in an agricultural town southwest of Penang Island, Malaysia. To this day, the economy of Balik Pulau still relies heavily on agriculture with produce such as durian, nutmeg and clove and other foods. Urbanization has also reached the town in recent years, with more residential development being planned for this part of Penang Island. This district has faced an issue of outmigration of young school leavers who felt that the rural economy had nothing to offer them. Many young people opt not to continue building on the local cultural capital and develop their town. The myBALIKpulau was a heritage education program led by ASET. This program was designed to help young people connect with their own environment, cultural asset and community through creative educational approach. myBALIKpulau program consisted of an iterative mapping project stretched over 6 years from 2005 to 2010. These projects were conducted with several cohorts of young people who were taught creative ways to map, document and promote the history and cultural heritage of Balik Pulau. Yok Bing, the program lead and coordinator, will share with us why ASET started to work in Balik Pulau.
This project, based and chosen Balik Pulau as the site, were actually a few reasons. Reason number one, the natural environment as well as the traditional economy at that time was experiencing a great changes. A lot of rapid intrusion of modern housing development, as well as a lot more opening of multinational factories in the nearby free trade zone, making the place has a lot of great development from outside. And with some initial project discussion with the residents there, we found out that there's a lot of young people move out. They're not actually interested to come back and work in their own hometown. So we hope that with some intervention from ASET to turn around young residents' perceptions and probably get them to appreciate the cultural heritage of Balik Pulau and then to get them come back and work for their hometown.
Mapping and interpretation of the cultural heritage remain as the dominant goals throughout the program. Myself, My Family and My Town was the first project in 2005, an exercise in cultural mapping with 15 young residents aged 11 to 13 using photography as the medium. Students explore themselves, their families and community history, local environment and the local economy. They collected data using mind mapping, interviews, photography, sketches and composed photo essays which collectively reflected the cultural asset of Balik Pulau. The project led young residents to review the cultural asset of their living space and develop an appreciation for their heritage through the third eye of the camera. Kong Yu, who was the main artist to conceptualize the program, chose photography and digital camera as the arts medium for the project, considering the age and socio-cultural background of the children. It was because digital camera was something that most young people were comfortable and familiar with. Kong Yu also saw photography as an equalizing medium for the children, as they will not be judged for something that they might not demonstrate sufficient talent or skill, as operating a digital camera required very basic technical skills. Moreover, by documenting their town cultural asset through photography, children can learn and understand their environment better. The other important factor is that the town had public computer facilities, so even participants who didn't have computer at home will be able to carry on with the activities even after the team left. The mapping exercises continued with a different cohort of participants and later led to produce promotional materials that reach out to a wider audience.
ASET continue on research more in-depth on very specific topic of the cultural assets. The project actually go into architectures and heritage building. The students actually study the aesthetic of the agriculture and also its occupant. So a lot of the resident stories were captured and also how they actually use the building. There's also other cultural assets, for example, 100 years old shop house the iconic historical landmark like the roundabout, the historical church, some of the local dishes, and some even actually look into how to make signages to promote it. On the other hand, some of the project actually connect with school syllabus. So some of the teachers and students study the economic geography of a coastal fishing community under the subject geography and history. This was actually a very rare cases because a lot of the teacher wouldn't want to connect to outside of the school. Back then, it was CA is a very hassle kind of movement. The other attempt was to research the science behind the local produce or the cottage industry. Students under the guidance of the teacher examined and also documented the manufacturing process in the cottage industry, which then transformed the local agriculture and also the seafood produced into edible products. Some students even attempted lab work to experiment to help solve some of the issues faced by the farmer.
In 2007, ASET started to interpret Balik Pulau's cultural asset using different forms of promotional materials. The materials further facilitate local residents and visitors to understand the historical and cultural aspect of Balik Pulau. The promotional materials were the result of collective effort by the children and professional researchers and designers.
This Discover Balik Pulau map was initially suggested by the children in the very first workshop. I still remember. Compared to the usual top-down approach of the map making, this is really a bottom-up approach mapping. And very interestingly, this approach accepted by the state tourism and took it on as one of their official promotional effort as a visitor map.
It continued in print for 7 years and was a catalyst to many other promotional material of the town later. Based on the visitors map produced, ASET works on next promotional materials to produce a community newspaper. Cultural researchers cross-check the information collected by the young participant for accuracy. New research data gathered from oral interviews and secondary source materials were added to the history of Balik Pulau.
In 2010, the newspaper was published in 3 languages and distributed to almost every single household in Balik Pulau. It was the first multilingual publication which carried the people's story and history of the town Balik Pulau.
Since 2010, 12 years have passed. What happened after the program? Let's hear what the partners and community say.
Saya bukan orang Balik Pulau, saya bukan dilahirkan di sini. Tapi yang kata dibesarkan di sini, saya tak tahu pun sejarah Balik Pulau, warisan semua tak tahu. Tapi bila kita kenal program ni, kita dah mula rasa sayang orang Balik Pulau, sayang tentang warisan, banyak benda-benda sejarah yang dikupas.
Siti continues working with students to explore the cultural heritage of Balik Pulau. She also incorporated the research content of myBALIKpulau program into a computer training module by Rural Internet Center that she managed.
Pas program ni saya sayang lah dengan artikel semua kan. Jadi saya beberapa kali masuk dalam website sebenarnya. Kami pun buat training sikit-sikit tentang bangkit sekolah. Macam mana ASET buat dulu, kita buat ronda-ronda Balik Pulau supaya mereka dapat tahu kelebihan di Balik Pulau itu sendiri. Modul kita banyak tentang sejarah Balik Pulau itself. Contohnya dia kena type artikel kan. Kita masuk ke artikel so mereka nak belajar tu. Di samping tu juga mereka tahu tentang sejarah Balik Pulau itu sendiri.
myBALIKpulau program has inspired more initiative in continuing the efforts in documenting and promoting the stories of Balik Pulau.
Jadi saya perasanlah banyak orang yang lebih cintakan sejarah, lebih tahu warisan. Jadi selepas tu saya nampak banyak pembangunan street art, pertubuhan peradaban pun ada. Semuanya nak dengan hasrat nak korek baliklah sejarah-sejarah di Balik Pulau sendiri.
Ko is an artist who is also a local historian. He was one of the resource persons who helped with connecting the project team with local resources and networking. Having returned to his hometown after being away for more than 16 years, he now resides here, managing his career as a full-time artist.
重新，我从你们那边认识虎龙，我重新认识我的家园。因为以前我们离开的时候很年轻，也不知道什么历史。因为你们从市区过来，你们把一些城市里面的一些模式带来乡下，所以你们是把现代化的也带一点进来，然后把一些旧的、传统的，你们从这边发现了的，你们也带到市区去，也带孩子去市区看看，去逛古迹去啊。 你们已经把那个种子如何保存古迹，如何发扬我们历史，如何看重我们的传统啊，我们祖先怎样来啊，我们先辈怎样来，让他们知道哦，原来我们不只是说除了学校的功课，原来我们还有个社区这么密切的联系。
Today, Balik Pulau town remain as an agricultural district but with more new development. Balik Pulau also attracted new players to venture into cultural tourism-based development.
Macam rumah-rumah lama tu kan, kita kekalkan tapi kita jaga keunikan rumah-rumah lama gitu, bangunan lama.
没有办法完成，不可能完成，但是它会一直走下去的使命，因为这个东西一直在变嘛。这一代可能我们做不到，但是我们已经慢慢的把这个种子种在我们的下一代。而我的普罗山贝，希望它是永远的属于大家的我们的普罗山贝。